Yes, so good morning. Today is March 2nd, 2026, and it is 9:42 a.m. Central Time. So I'm just leaving my home at 2302 Britton Ridge. Oh, so mystery solved. So the red Corvette, the hot lady, she is from the 24910 Teal Lake. And here, so diagonal to Larry Ryan, right? And here Larry Ryan has this worker that is always, surveilling visually my home. And this one is Kilo X-ray Papa 7646, it seems, or 7. It's far away, so I cannot really see. I have to check the cameras. But it's a Ford um, pickup truck with a large attachment, of course, in the back. But that attachment is not, it's an antenna, basically. So, when they foresee that I'm going to go out, they put that guy there to surveil, right? To see where I go. So that's interesting. So it means that the lady with the red Corvette is one of my main adversaries, like one of my main cats, because that house on the side of the house, they have a window that is always open. It has blinds, right? But the blinds are always open. And that window has a straight line of sight to the front of my house, right? So that's where they have probably the optics, right? Pointing to my house. So that is interesting. So yes, so today I have a few interesting things. The game plan is that we're going to do some rounds today and do some interesting things. Yeah, so let's start with important stuff, right? Like the high level stuff. Well, not high level, but like the legal, because this network is commanded by the judges, right? So let's start there with the legal topics. So let me catch you up on what's happened since demo D118. I think was the last one I recorded a couple of days ago. So after I recorded that, what happened was I filed the report, the disclosure with I think the first 2 or 3 disclosures with the OFAC. Okay. For people not familiar, the OFAC is that federal instance or office that is in charge of seizing assets of criminals, really, that are supporting terrorism and others, criminal enterprises, right, globally. So this is an office with immense power to seize assets, to freeze them, not seize them, but they freeze them. So it means that the person cannot move them, touch them, anything, right? The person or the entity. So I did that, right? I did that on the 26th of February, February 26, 2026. And I sent this email to the Patriot email inbox of the FinCEN like around 10:48 p.m. U.S. Central Time. This was on February 26, 2026. And what happened after, a few hours after, the Supreme Court of Texas, also on the 27th in the morning, the Supreme Court of Texas denied my motion to reinstate the case 25-1055. That is the Supreme Court case that I had, right? Supreme Court of Texas. I'm talking about the state Supreme Court. Against basically Josh Telfair, right? So, I mean, he was the respondent in that case. That case was dismissed on January 7th, I believe, or 8th, 2026, exactly one day after I filed a report with the DOJ. Right? So when I complained to the DOJ, the next day, the Supreme Court of Texas dismissed the case summarily. Like they didn't address the issues, like the serious allegations of, crimes of, pretty much everything you can think of in the terms of, judicial fraud that has been committed in this lower court. They ignore everything and they just summarily dismiss dismiss the case without any even rationale or explanation, nothing. Which, I mean, the Supreme Court of a state has the power to do that, right? It's highly discretionary. But given the severity of the allegations, I feel like they should have at least say why, right? But no, it was just a postcard, literally one line saying the case has been dismissed. That was it, right? The next day after, I filed a formal complaint with the DOJ, which I then turned into a published book. This is a published book that you can actually buy, and a printed book, right? And you can get the full complaint at this point. It has 3 volumes and something like the complaint for the DOJ and something like 41 supplements. That's basically the book. It's the collection of all the things that I've documented and sent to the DOJ. So the judges dismissed the justices of the Supreme Court of Texas dismissed that case. Okay. So what happened was afterwards, I don't know, when I implemented the rope strategy. I'm not going to go again in this demo what it is, but if you're curious, look for that demo. When I did that, I filed a motion with the Supreme Court of Texas asking them to please reinstate the case because Judge Telfair had been escalating that. I mean, he was retaliating even after I reported him to the DOJ. He went ballistic, right? Like he actively started openly trying to put me in prison. Notably in that hearing of January 22nd, right? When then after the hearing, Comcast cut my internet. But anyhow, so I filed a motion to reinstate with the Supreme Court of Texas. This was on the, it must have been around January 22nd, 23rd, right? Around that time. I can't recall the exact date, but I filed that motion. And also, remember, I had filed a motion to recuse that at the end got escalated to the Supreme Court because I am also asking to recuse Judge Susan Brown. And this was filed on January 14th, 2026. Right? So at this point, the Supreme Court of Texas had 2 things on their desks. One was the 3verified motion to recuse that came from Judge Telfair directly because he refused to recuse himself. Of course, to try to keep, putting me in prison, right? I mean, he knows that if this goes to an impartial judge, he will be investigated at the very least, right? So he can't allow that. That's why he can recuse himself. He has to fight this to the end. So at that point, the Supreme Court of Texas had those 2 cases, right? So I mean, the motion to recuse that was escalated there, and also my motion to reinstate that they had not ruled on, right? But crucially, they did not take any action on either. Like the Supreme Court of Texas hasn't ruled according to the docket, right? What I'm telling you is according to the official docket on the 387 court. There's no mention of any ruling on the motion to recuse. And it's been since January 14th, right? So it's been pending for, a month and a half at this point, right? Yes, sorry about that. So that was pending, and also the motion to reinstate the case. So the ask was in that motion. I also asked to consolidate the 2 cases. I mean the two things, the 2 instruments, right? So because they had the motion to recuse on one hand, and they had the motion to reinstate because the escalation that Judge Telfair was doing after refusing to recuse himself. So I formally asked them to consolidate the 2 things and consider them together because they make sense, right? They're tied together. Logically, right? You cannot look at one without looking at the other. You shouldn't, right? Otherwise, I mean, this is in the interest of justice, right? Which is the goal of the Supreme Court. So anyhow, that's what I did, right? But they didn't. I mean, they let me file things. I could file in the Supreme Court of Texas, but I mean, it's not like in the 5th Court of Appeals where they openly block the filings. I cannot even file at the appellate court of the 5th Circuit. There, I cannot even file. But on the Supreme Court of Texas, they let me file. Okay, but they just don't take action. Like they don't rule on the motions. They ignore them. So telling you all this is important because what happened was that after I reported Telfair and I think it was Telfair and the billionaires, right? That's the tech billionaires, the tech bros. After I reported the tech bros, which are my tech adversaries, right? They have been doing this for 25 years. So after I'll take this one. So after I sent those two reports to the OFAC, the next day, within hours, right? Because I sent the report on and I reported Telfair via email to FinCEN at 10:48 p.m. on the 26th of February. So within, I don't know, maybe 12 hours. So the next morning, the Supreme Court of Texas dismissed all my motions that were pending, that they hadn't ruled on for a month and a half. Right? But in less than 12 hours, they ruled on everything, and they dismissed everything summarily, without any explanation or anything. Right? Now, this is important. When they did the first dismissal of the case around January 8th or 9th, I filed a motion to clarify, because they dismissed this case that had serious allegations of criminal activity by a judge without any explanation, right? Without any rationale. So I respectfully asked them if they could clarify in the motion, right? This is a motion to clarify. If they could clarify why was it dismissed, so I could address the problem, right? Well, and they of course didn't rule on that, right? They just ignored it for a month and a half. But when this new dismissal happened on the 27th, hours after I filed the report with the OFAC and FinCEN, then they ruled on that motion as well, denying it summarily. It's very grave, right? Like, if you look at it objectively, this is very serious, right? But at this point, to be honest, it's kind of funny, because what they're saying is, what they're saying is, we saw the evidence of criminal activity, we decided to ignore it and dismiss your petition, and you're asking for a clarification of why, and we're not going to give you any clarification. So that's what they're doing, right? They're formally saying, we're not going to even tell you why. Imagine that, right? This is like, next level of obstruction. But, it is what it is, right? So that's one side of the equation, right? The second side of the equation is something that happened on the 28th of February, okay? And here I have to give you I want to give you a little bit more of context of because when you see, I don't know, at least to me, right? When I analyze these things myself, to me at least, it is important to try to understand the psychological framework, right, of the person making the decisions, right? To understand the reason, right? Why they did this or not, they didn't do other things, right? I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I have this tendency. I try to understand not the why, right? Because the why could be money, but like, what's the angle, right? Like, what is that person coming from? In a way, it's kind of empathy, right? I try to take an empathic stance or position when I'm analyzing these things, right? So I want to tell you why I did this, right? So last week, I had been working with the pipeline, as I mentioned before, and I have it running on exhaustive mode for almost a week at this point. And I had developed a couple of strategies that are nuclear, really. Like, they are like, Armageddon, right? Legally speaking, for these people. But from my shoes, I have to be careful, right? Because there's people that I care about in the middle of this, right? And I don't know how to frame this, right? Like, I don't really know how to articulate this, but I guess in a way, right, it's the same problem that the military has, right? Like, when they have a weapon that is very powerful, if they deploy it, they could cause serious collateral damage, right? So they have to be careful how they use it, right? In my situation, the collateral damage is the mother of the child, right? Like, I don't want to cause more harm to the two children, right? Well, Sebas is a man, right? Like, he turned 18 yesterday, but still, right? That's his mom. So I don't want to cause any damage, right? Unnecessarily, right? If I can avoid it, I will avoid it, right? So I haven't, wanted to deploy those strategies because of that, right? I'm kind of I guess my position is, I'm gonna deploy the least amount of energy possible, right? Because my goal is to get the child back and, bring this to the authorities' attention, and they should figure out what to do, right? It's not my job to disassemble this network. My goal here is to recover the child, to rescue him, really, right? So it's a fine line, right, that I'm walking. I'm trying to balance those things. But there's something that happened on February 28th, right? And I've been trying to tell her indirectly, right? Because I don't want to address the issue with her. I don't want to create friction, right? So over the last few weeks, I've been trying to give her hints, right? That this is coming to a head, and that she should, take measures to protect herself. Think about herself and think about the children, right? And not about Andres Salvador Mendez or the Moleros or whoever, right? But so what happened on February 28th is that we went out to buy a video game for the kid, and we drive in the two cars because Morgan Heibner and William Kell Adams gave her the directive to not let me inside of the car. I think they're afraid that I may be carrying an instrument that would allow me to decrypt the messages, right, that they send through that car. So that's the reason, right? So she told me, let's go into cars, right? So I go in my car and she goes in her car, okay? And right, just so you know, the L2s today are white, not gray. So we have to all watch out for the white cars, which is interesting. It means that they have this car bugged as well, right? Because I didn't say it at the beginning, but I'm driving the armored vehicle today. So it's not the Tesla, right? So it means that they have this car bugged as well, somehow, right? It could be that maybe they replaced the rear view mirror of the car, right? One of those times that I went to the court, it's possible. By their special Chinese, rear view mirror. But anyhow, yes. So we go in the two cars, right? And we get to the store, and she asked me, a question that was a bit weird, why did you get behind me in that particular part of the trip? On the trip to the store. I said, oh no, I didn't want to get in. I did it because there was a woman that was following me, right? But I didn't want to get into the details because she's going to, record that and then misconstruct it somehow and use it in court. So I didn't. I said, no, it's a long story, right? I didn't get into the details. So we go into the stores and I haven't mentioned this before, but among the computer vision systems that I have a small model. It's a really simple model that alerts me when somebody takes a picture to the car with a phone or with a camera. Like it has I have a vision classifier that flags instances of people taking pictures of the car. So when I process the feed from the car the next day, I get an alert, and somebody took a picture of the car at the Target. This happened at the Target store in Westheimer. When I review the flag, the debug output, I see the picture. It's Gloria, right? Gloria, when I was taking the child out of the car, she took her phone out of her pocket covertly. It's obvious. Like if you watch the video, you will see that she did this, avoiding me seeing her taking the picture, right? The car is in a public parking lot. She could take the picture. I have no problem with that. But why do it when I turn my back? I was taking the child out of the car, so I turned my back to her. And in that moment, she took the phone out and took a picture of the car, specifically of the upper camera of the car. That's the one that triggered, that channel was the one that triggered the flag from this vision model. Yes, the white cars are a thing today. I'm not gonna read the place today because I want to. This demo is important, so I want to concentrate on this demo and not, to not add noise to the demo. Um, so yes. So yeah, so she, she took this picture covertly, right? But it's not only that she took the picture. Remember, in one of the demos recently, I mentioned that I was told by the informant in one of the messages that I picked up during one of my rounds that the lawyers, the judges really, were planning to fabricate evidence to create a new case, supposedly for harassment. That supposedly I'm following her with the cameras. That's the That's the argument, right? That's the argument of that new case that they're going to fabricate using her to try to put me in jail, right? For harassment or cyberbullying. I don't know what it is, right? But I got this. Well, this is interesting because I got this message from an informant that works in the Venezuelan Army intelligence in Venezuela, right? According to him, I don't know him in person and I don't even know his name. But according to what he tells me and the good information, life-saving information he has given me over the last few months, I believe him. So this means that these judges are, this proves that these judges are working for Diosdado Cabello directly. Like there's no buffer, there's no middleman. Like they may have the phone number of Diosdado Cabello in speed dial. So she did this, right? So I even know what the charge is going to be. Imagine that. And then she takes the phone and takes the picture of the car. So here I have to tell you, it's not like it's not revenge. I'm not. So see the Penske truck is marking me, right? They brought the yellow truck. This is interesting. So it means that this car is bugged, but it has less GPS capabilities for them, right, than the Tesla. With this, they have to track me visually. That's good. Okay, so let's do something. Let's move past. One second. Just gonna create some safety. All right. Okay. Yes. So the following actions that I'm going to describe, I want to tell you that they're not retaliation. It's not like I'm taking revenge or anything. No, it's not that. It's just something that it became clear to me. I understood that I cannot persuade her to stop being utilized in this way, right? And imagine, right? They have leverage over her because of her family and because of Andres Salvador Mendez, and she's trying to save them, right? I mean, in a way, it's kind of a noble thing, right? Unfortunately, this means harming me, right? Putting me in prison. So if she has to choose, she would choose her family and her husband, right? I mean, I can understand that. So when I realized this, when I saw, seeing that video, and I posted it's a short video, it's like 5 seconds. I put it on YouTube so investigators can see that I'm not making this stuff up. But when I saw that video, this became clear to me, right? And then my I had to adapt, right? I had to adapt my strategy. I can't keep managing the nuclear fallout, right? I can't keep doing that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go all in. I'm going to fire, I'm going to no mercy with these people. And then I'm going to actively work in managing the fallout to rescue her, right, from the fallout. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pay for her lawyers to defend her. I'm going to pay for a crisis management company to, help her, keeping me buffered, right? Because, I'm the adversarial party. I cannot be giving her advice or paying for her lawyer directly, right? So from what I understand, I have to set up a trust fund for legal defense, and then, the trust fund will, make disbursements to the crisis management company that will help her during that process, and the attorneys that will assist her, right? So that's what I'm going to do, right? So because of this, I decided to fire the strategies that I had designed last week, that I was kind of holding to see, if I could, accomplish what I need to accomplish without, harming her, right? So that's my new strategy. So this is where this comes in, right? So because this is what I was giving you the introduction, the long introduction about the Supreme Court of Texas, right, and the events that transpired there. So because of this situation, that they dismiss the case, this creates a situation, right, that I can open a new case. I mean, there's no rule against asking for a second petition for a different, it's a different petition, right? Yeah, I mean, and they dismissed the case summarily without even addressing the issue. So I could even file the same petition again, but I filed a new petition. But this petition is nuclear because it contains all the evidence of wire fraud of multiple instances, right? The most recent, including the most recent was that order for the garnishing of the income withholding, they call it, right? So in this order for income withholding that they created, and this is described in a previous demo, first of all, I'm not employed by anyone, so there's no income to withhold, but they're doing this to freeze my bank accounts, and this is the basis, that's wire fraud, right, what they're doing. And that's the basis on which I reported them to the OFAC and FinCEN, because they're doing this wire fraud for Josaro Cabello, who is a special designated individual. So, yes. So that's the basis of the disclosures for Telfair and Troy Pickett and those people, right? To the OFAC and FinCEN. So because of that, I also have to tell you, I didn't mention this before, but I saw the other anomalies that are also docket tampering, right? Which is a serious crime, and also to cause this wire fraud, right? To help this to be able to commit the wire fraud. Done by the clerk of the clerk and Troy Pickett and the judge himself, right? Of the 387 court. So I'm going to tell you here to document this, right? This is in the Supreme Court of Texas filing, but I'll say it here to record it. The situation is, there's a series of anomalies. The first one is that this supposed order, this is really a void order, right? Because the court didn't even have jurisdiction to sign it because there is a pending motion to recuse. But in this order, if you look at the upper right corner on the first page, the stamp of the clerk says January 23rd, right? So this is an anomaly because supposedly the judge signed the order on February 24th, so almost a month after, right? The procedure is, the real procedure, right, is that they should file the document with the coordinator, the judge signs the order, and then it gets filed after it's signed, right? So if the judge signed it on the 24th of February, that timestamp from the clerk should be the 24th of February or after, right? It cannot be a month before. So what they're doing, let me tell you the TP, because at this point it's obvious, right? They've done this with other orders in this case before as well, including the void order of October 15, which is the one that they're using to keep the child kidnapped. So the TTP is that they file a draft first, right? Instead of giving the order to the coordinator to get the signature and then file it, they change the process. They create their own bizarro process, which is they file the draft. Then the draft gets filed, and then they put a little stamp on the bottom that says routed to the clerk, like to say that, they filed the draft, and then that draft was routed and then signed. But even if that was the case, after it's signed, it has to be filed again, right? Because otherwise, how do we know that what the judge signed is actually what was filed in the draft, right? Like, they could have two different orders, right? So when it's after it's signed, it has to be refiled. That's the procedure, right? They have to file the signed order. They cannot file the draft and then sign it and not file it, right? That's what they're doing. That's basically the trick that they have, right? So what they're doing with that is, creating this fraud, right? With the void orders. But there's also a more damning anomaly here, which is the following: in that little red stamp that they put on the bottom left part of the first page that says route to the clerk, it says February 25th, right? So, I mean, even the deployment of the TTP was done incorrectly, because if they route the supposed order to the clerk on the 25th, how can the judge sign it on the 24th, a day before? So this means that the judge got the order not from the clerk. The judge got the order from Troy Pickett on a Sunday, right, at his house. I don't know where, right? But I mean, this is ex parte. Like they are managing this document among themselves and without any transparency, right? And then the judge signs it, and then who knows what happens, right? But it doesn't stop there. I mean, there's like 5 anomalies, right, on this thing. The other one is when they file it, right? When they finally file, because first they had the order secreted. I mean, they put a note in the docket saying, order sent to all pro se litigants by mail, meaning that they mailed it to me, right, by physical mail, which is abnormal because in all these cases, I will always e-file the documents. Why not e-file this one? Why mailed it, right? It's just to create delay so I cannot see the order, right? And by the time I get the order, I'm already, my bank account is already frozen, right? That's the TTP. But anyhow, so they said, we're going to, we sent it by mail, right? They did not file it on the electronic filing system, right? So there is not, in this order, there is no electronic service certificate. It doesn't exist, right? We cannot know when they serve it, if they serve it at all, right? Because there is no certificate. This is part of the TTP, right? This creates the fraud as well. Then they filed, what they really filed was a notice from the clerk saying, hey, this order was entered and we are attaching the order. But the order was not really attached. That was a lie. They only filed the cover letter, not the order, right? Then next, on the next step of the fraud, they finally, right after I said that I was going to report them to the OFAC, I haven't really reported them yet, but I said on the demo that I was going to report them. So then they filed the order. And it appeared on the docket as filed on February 25th, okay? Now, remember, I have an automated system that takes snapshots of the docket multiple times per day, right? Precisely to catch this. So what happened was my system took a snapshot and the order appeared as filed. This order that doesn't have a certificate of service, right, appears in the docket, but you cannot click to download it. And the snapshot was taken on the 25th of February, or the 26th, I can't recall. But it's there, right? The order is there, it's just that you cannot download it, but it says order, right? Docket index, I think it's 180, I think, right? And then on the date of that filing, it says February 25th, 2025, okay? Then my system takes another snapshot of the docket the next day. And the next day, surprise, surprise, the date of the order changed. Now it says February 24, the day that the judge supposedly signed. And it's downloadable. So see, like, on 2 different dates, the docket gave, the official docket of Fort Bend County gave 2 contradictory timestamps or times of filing for the supposed order, but it's not really the order. What they've, because as I explained, if they had really filed the signed order, the timestamp at the top should say the date of the signature, right, or after, right? They cannot. Why does it say on the timestamp of the filing from the clerk January 23rd on the top? But the signature of the judge is February 24th, right? A month after. They had to file it after it was signed. So what they're doing is that they file a draft, they get the draft signed, and then they never file it, right? And they never file it, and they never serve it, right? So that's why it's a nuclear weapon, because it's an order that the other party doesn't even have, doesn't know what it says, right? And they can enforce it because they can show that order to the police. And of course, because they control the police will do whatever they want, right? So that's why it's a nuclear weapon, right, that they create. But you see, like, there's so many different instances of tampering with the official docket in this case that this, I don't know how these sentences are computed, right? I mean, for like, I don't know if each thing that you modify in this document is a count of tampering, or if it's just one count per document or one count per day. Like, I don't know how this works, right? But if it's one count per thing that you alter, there would be like 5 counts of tampering in just this one document, right? To commit the word fraud to then silence a federal witness. I mean, so this is, you know, probably one of the most serious federal crimes they've committed so far, in my opinion, right? In my humble opinion. So I explicitly wrote all these, and I filed a new petition with the Supreme Court of Texas, attaching the evidence, attaching all these, the screenshots, the snapshots of different dates of the docket showing different dates, everything, right? Pointing out the contradictory timestamps in all these instances, everything, right? It's all in one comprehensive filing, a new petition against directed to Judge Telfair. And it's with the Supreme Court of Texas, right? So I filed that last night at 9-something p.m. But don't leave yet, because here's where the strategy gets really, really good, right? So after I did this, right, and this is a concept that I learned. I'm telling you this because, for the same reason, right? So you see how I can encode these things into this pipeline. This is a concept I learned actually from Pappas, from Matthew Pappas at Goldman Sachs. It's called alignment. Okay. The idea is that you have to align your goals and your tools, what you have, your ammunition. You have to align it with the goals of the people that can actually make things happen, right? And that's the overall principle. That's the high-level principle. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that, right? I mean, why I'm saying this, right? So what I did was, after I filed this thing with the Supreme Court of Texas, I sent a copy of these to the Honorable Brian Weiss, with C, so W-I-C-E. See, this is a special prosecutor that is going to prosecute the case against, Texas versus KP George on March 10th, right? And I sent him this as ammunition because KP George is a judge, the county judge of Fort Bend County, and these are financial crimes, and he's charged with financial crimes. I mean, this is a one-to-one mapping to what he's charged with, right? So this is evidence. So that's the first thing I did, right? But remember, he has discretionary, he has discretion, right, on whether to use it or not. He's not obligated to use it. But the strategy, and this is a strategy that I had designed with the pipeline last week, right? But I had not deployed because I was trying to, disarm this without having to put the mother of the child temporarily behind bars, right? But we're ready to talk about my reasoning here. Yes, so the traffic is a bit weird. They're scrambling, obviously, right? This car it's not that easy for them. So the next thing I did, I also sent it via FedEx to the defense of KP George. And this is where you can see the brilliance of this strategy from the pipeline designed this, right? Because, and this is where that concept of alignment that I encoded into the pipeline comes into play. This is where it paid off. See, this is what I mean. I'm telling you this, and I get a little bit, I feel a bit of a rejoice when I say this, right? Because the reasoning here is that the defense has a duty to their client, to KP George, to defend him, right? And not just defend him vigorously. I think is the standard, right? Like, the expectation is that the defense, a criminal defense attorney, has to defend their client vigorously. It's not just like a casual defense. Like, they have to, live and breathe, for this client, right? For every client, because their freedom is at stake. So what I did, I sent it to the defense, right? The argument is, this could be exculpatory evidence for KP George. So I am defending KP George, right? Even though he's been the head of this and has denied me of due process and everything, I'm taking the position of trying to help him, right? So I sent it to the defense saying, this could very well be exculpatory evidence. Why? Well, because there is evidence that this Fort Bend County Court that is prosecuting KP George is engaged on a RICO enterprise to alter, court records. And, so, you might change, I don't know, I don't want to comment on what their strategy could be, right? But I imagine if I was there, I think I would ask for a change of venue, right? If there is evidence that this court is committing criminal acts of docket tampering and tampering with the record and wire fraud and all these things, how can I trust them with the freedom or, imprisonment of my client? I wouldn't, right? I would ask for a change of venue outside of Texas immediately, right? Because as I said in the previous demo, or one of the previous demos, KP George has a right to a fair trial, and nobody should deny him from that. We should protect that right, that he has, because that's the rule of law. That's how the system should work, right? Even if it denies the due process to everybody else, we have to be better, right? I mean, we have to be better than KP George and Telfair and all of them, right? So that's why I'm sending that to the defense, to help KP George. And now the defense attorneys, both of them, I sent it to the two of them, which, to be completely transparent with you, they are both marking the index, right? And they have name markers, and there's one that has the wood marker, and the other one has the junior, no, a four. Like Telfair the third. That third in Telfair the third is a marker of not only of importance but rank. So the fourths are more important than the thirds. So this defense attorney is more important than Telfair. He's more powerful than Telfair in the network. But I sent them the exculpatory evidence anyways, right, to help KP George. And now the defense attorneys have a duty to show this to the judge, right? And vigorously. They have to argue for this evidence to come in vigorously. That's their duty, right? And also, on the third leg of this tool is I sent, remember, so I don't know if I mentioned this in a previous demo. This idea came to me last week, was to ask for a media credential to this court for the judge, for the trial of KP George. The argument is that I'm an independent journalist, an author, and I have 3 books published that are registered with the Law Library of Congress that talk about judiciary corruption. So this is, right on my ballpark. And I also have a YouTube channel where I record almost daily videos about this very topic, right? And this is a topic that is, on the interest of the public, and transparency, because this is a public elected official, transparency here is paramount. So it is in the best interest of the public, the justice, and the appearance of justice that the judge grants me credentials for media access to the courtroom, right? And I attach, so in all these 3 documents that I'm describing, I attached the filing that I did with the Supreme Court of Texas, right? Including for the media request. So now the judge is going to see the serious allegations of criminal activity in the Fort Bend County courts, right? And I don't know what her moral obligations would be when she sees that, right? But the important thing is that this creates another important and I think unbreakable circle of transparency, because now the judge, the court coordinator, the defense, and the special prosecutor, they all know about the wire fraud committed in the Fort Bend county courts, using the tampering of the documents in the dockets, right? And 2 out of the 3 have an obligation to tell the others. The judge also has an obligation to tell the defense, right, that she saw this evidence. Like the judge cannot, put this under the rug, right? The defense has the duty to argue vigorously for the inclusion of this evidence in the trial. And the only one that has some level of discretion is the prosecutor, right? So, you know, this is what I'm saying, this is nuclear, right? And at the same time, all of this is in the OFAC, in FinCEN, and with the banks, right? Including the Bank of China, US, and Goldman Sachs, right? The banks have an obligation to tell FinCEN there's a form called SAR that they have to file for this. And if they don't file it, that's a serious offense. They could lose, their ability to trade if they don't file it. The resuspension, right, from the trading license if they don't file it. FinCEN is probably obligated to tell the OFAC. And I imagine all of these, the FinCEN and the OFAC are monitored by the DOJ or somebody, right? I don't know who, but somebody. So, it creates a tremendous situation, right? Yes, 1 second. Yes. Okay. Yes. So that was the nuclear strategy designed last week by the pipeline that I was holding on reserve. But given that thing that I saw in that video, seeing on video, it changed my mindset, I guess. And I understood that to move forward, I need to prioritize, the, incarceration of these actors and then manage the fallout. So that's where we are. Okay. So now I have to tell you other things on the legal topics. So tomorrow, March the 3rd, I have supposedly a pre-trial hearing with Justice Place 1.1 for Ben. This is with Judge Kelly Crow, sorry. It's supposed to happen tomorrow, but I don't know. I don't. There's two things that worry me, right? One is, I want to give you the case number. Let me start with that. The case number is 25-GCR, so that's January Charlie Robert, 11-39187. I repeat that. 25-JCR11-39187. And the strange thing is that when I go online on the Fort Bend County Courts system and I try to find this case, it doesn't show up. I search for it, but it doesn't come up, right? It's like the docket is hidden. The docket exists because when I went to the court, I think it was on February 2nd, when I had that incident with that gentleman, what's his name? Napier, right? George Napier. That day, I asked for a copy, and they gave me a copy of the docket, and the docket exists, and the number is correct. I triple checked it. It's not a mistake, but for some reason the docket does not appear online. Now this is strange because if I look for the KP George case, the docket appears online. In fact, I downloaded the docket and I sent it to the OFAC. So why is that my case being lower level than? My case is just a citation for a it's a citation for a light on my vehicle that, according to the police officer, he says it's blue, but it's not blue, it's white. But he says it's blue. For that silly thing, right? I got this citation. So, right. So, why is that my case for this traffic citation? And I checked, and other similar traffic citations appear in the search tool of Fort Bend County, but my case doesn't appear. So I don't know. I don't have access to see if the case was dismissed. I also had to file a motion for discovery, right? 2 motions for discovery. including the recordings of the lobby on February 2nd when they blocked me from the courthouse. I haven't received any recordings. So I don't know. How can we have a pretrial if they don't do if they don't comply with the discovery obligations they have, right? So I don't know. That's a situation that is unfolding tomorrow morning at the Justice Place 1.1. Yes, so I think to keep this contained, I'm going to close this demo here to not mix non-legal topics with legal topics and make this only legal. So I'm going to close this demo. So this is demo D. This was demo D119, and I'll see you on the next one. Okay, bye. Yeah, sorry. There is one more thing that I was going to mention that is also in the legal arena, right? So, when I started on this line of thinking of managing the fallout, I started looking for crisis management intervention firms, right, that operate here in this area that could help Gloria, right, when this inevitably goes to trial. Well, if there is an arrest, right, or something like that. To help her, right? Because I foresee that the attorneys could be arrested. I have to tell you, I run this through the models in the pipeline. The pipeline tells me this is why I'm acting on this right now, because the pipeline tells me that this is imminent. Like the OFAC is very aggressive, right? It's one of the most aggressive agencies that there are in terms of response time. And here, I have to tell you, I'm ignorant of this topic, right? What I'm telling you is based on data that I mine from the internet and process using the cluster of servers. But it seems like they act very fast, right? Usually, and I imagine, and this is just me speculating. I don't know if this is the case, but I imagine this is because they freeze things like oil tankers, right? I mean things that that could move, right, and are high value, and could be moved or hidden. So they have to act quickly, right? So they have to have highly how do you say that? Highly with fast, like they have very fast response capabilities, right? So because the pipeline thinks that this could be imminent, I'm acting, right? So I started looking for a firm to manage this fallout, right? For her, to help her, right? Because she's going to be what the situation I'm seeing in the scenarios that are being built are that her attorneys could be arrested because they're working with the judge, right? So if her attorneys are arrested, right, and she cannot, use the crypto or whatever, right, how is she going to pay for an attorney, right? Who is going to help her? Like, she's going to be helpless, right? And again, she's the mother of the children. So I can't, I can't, in good conscience, regardless of whatever happened, I can't let that be the case, right? So I started looking for a firm. What I want to tell you is that one of the firms that I contacted is one firm called PPI, I think, PPI Investigations, right? It's funny, right? Because, I mean, it's in this area. It has to be, this is a local thing, right? It has to be a firm that is in this area, and this area is heavily under control. So, I understand why this is the case, but I don't know. I came across this firm, and this firm is heavily flagged in the index. Like, they have super high prominence markers. And I think the president is somebody that was chief ranger, something like he was in law enforcement at a high level position before he's retired, right? Yeah, so I don't know. It's concerning, right? And it's also concerning that the person that responded to my email was the president of the company. I mean, I don't know. It's strange, right? I mean, it could be like one of those, like, taken care by its own owner kind of thing, right? But I don't know. It seemed weird. And also, right? So they sent me the schedule, the fee schedule, right? But in the fee schedule, I don't see the service that I'm looking for, right? Which is crisis management for legal crisis management, right? So I asked him if they do this. And he said, no, this is not a service we provide, and we can't provide it. Goodbye. Like he, I mean, it's not illegal, right? Like he can do that, and I can understand that he does that, right? I mean, it's not. But I have to tell you, like all these years, me trying to sell stuff, right, to compete with, with the tech bros and those people. Sorry. In all my years, right, trying to do sales, as a salesman, well, at least me, like, and also the salesman that they assigned to me, I've seen this trait on them as well, right? Like as a salesman, you are proactive, like if somebody tells you I'm looking for this and you don't have it, if you're a good salesman, to be a successful business person, you have to be proactive. You have to say, well, I don't have it, but I'll get it for you. Like give me 2 hours and I figure it out, right? But the stance of the president of the company, who replied to me directly, wasn't that. His stance was, nope, we don't do this, and goodbye. Like, I think, right, even if he has no interest in taking on that, he could still monetize it by a referral, right? He could have said, well, I don't do it, but I know this firm that does it, right? But no, like he cut me off. Like he worded his email in a way that there's no likely response back from me. So I don't know. I'm seeing the markings. What I'm trying to tell you, I built this is a hunch, right? I don't know. I cannot see what he knows, right? I will have to ask the Venezuelan informant. But my hunch is that he knows about the situation. Like he's informed of what is going on, and he wanted to, stay away, right? Personally, because he saw personal liability. But again, it's just a hypothesis, right? I don't know. But the fact that he's marking the index, that is a fact. You can check that on XisList.org. You can go to XisList.org and look for that company's address, and you will see what I'm telling you. So anyhow, with this one, I'm going to close this up. So this was demo D119, and it is 10:40 a.m. Central Time. Goodbye.